So we're all conditioned souls, and desires and emotions and anarthas from time to time attack us. And we can become very frustrated, depressed, upset, discouraged when it happens. So how do we deal with that? And this is a very important lesson, because we have to learn how to deal with it, because these things are going to happen. So we all know that sometimes the wrong thoughts just come into our head, or there's a situation and immediately we react. Maybe we become discouraged. Maybe we become frustrated. Maybe we become fearful. It's just a gut reaction. And these reactions are usually not helpful. And because we're conditioned souls, these things happen. This is the way life is. And when we see it in ourselves, especially if we've been practicing Krishna consciousness for a few years or 10 or 20 years or more, and we look at this stuff, and it can be really discouraging to see these same problems coming up year after year after year, especially if you've gone through a period where you're not really bothered by them, and all of a sudden they hit you. And so what a lot of devotees do is when they get hit by this frustration or this depression or discouragement, or by their lust or their greed or their anger, or whatever it is, they feel like they're kind of helpless victims of these emotions, or helpless victims of these anarthas, because they just showed up, they've kind of taken control, and they feel like, well, it's just the way it is. I didn't plant that thought in my head, it just entered my head, and now I'm a slave to that thought, or I didn't ask for this emotion. This is just how I feel. I see some injustice. I see some misbehavior. I see maybe a devotee acting in a way that I don't think is right, and I get frustrated. Or I hear a class and I say, no, what that devotee said is not right, or not completely right. I could become angry. And then we often give in to that anger, or give in to that frustration. And that can result in discouragement. It can result in depression. It can result in not wanting to be with devotees. It can result in wanting to leave ISKCON. It can result in just frustration. I want nothing to do with all of this. So how do we deal with it? It's actually very simple. It's just one thing we want to understand, or we need to understand, that what is going on inside of us is not how we have to act. It's not how we have to respond. Because I feel frustrated doesn't mean I have to allow that frustration to control me. Because I feel envious doesn't mean I have to allow that to control me. Because I have a bad thought, an illicit thought, it doesn't mean I have to allow it to control me. So what our job is to be able to react to those realities in a way in which we can neutralize or turn it around in some way so that we can continue enthusiastically with our Krishna consciousness. And I want to give an example, tell the story. Now, one time, a devotee came to Prabhupada, and she was very frustrated by the way devotees were dealing with her. And she went to Prabhupada and said, I quit, I can't go on. I'm completely discouraged by their behavior. And Prabhupada said, you have no right to quit. If anyone in ISKCON has a right to quit, it's me. And then he went on to give a list of all the things that happened in his trying to spread Krishna consciousness that were very discouraging. The lack of help, the criticism, the losses he had in New York in the beginning, the obstacle after obstacle, but especially the lack of help from India. And in worse, the criticism he was getting for the way he was applying, the practices or the preaching strategy. So Prabhupada said, if anyone has a right to be discouraged, it's me. You don't have a right. And he said, but I'm never discouraged. So he's taking this example, or he's using, this is an example of what I'm talking about, that he's saying, okay, these things are coming at me which are discouraging, but I process them in a way that I can remain enthusiastic in Krishna consciousness. Because if I don't process them in a way that I can remain enthusiastic, these things will discourage me. And then maybe I'll just go back to Vrindavan and live peacefully. Maybe I'll give up the austerity that I'm undergoing to spread Krishna consciousness. Maybe in some way I will reduce the preaching effort. In some way I will minimize what I'm doing. I will minimize my determination. I will minimize my enthusiasm for the mission of my spiritual master if I allow myself to become discouraged. Now, the last thing I want to say, as we all know, there are many discouraging things, many things that will discourage us. Our movement is not perfect. The world is not perfect. People are not perfect. Devotees are not perfect. So situations are not perfect. The people we love the most are not always perfect. So there's much to discourage us. But if we focus on those discouraging things, the more we focus on it, the more discouraged we become. And so I just caution you, if there's discouraging things going on in your life, injustices, dishonesty, compromises, etc., that are just discouraging, how can this go on in the world? How can this go on in our movement? Don't focus on that. Focus on how can I process this in a way that with my sphere of influence and my service, I can go on enthusiastically. Because if I allow myself to focus on all the negatives, I'm going to become negative. I'm going to become discouraged. And I'm ultimately becoming discouraged by the behavior of another person. And that doesn't make sense. Why should I get punished for the behavior of another person? Why should I punish myself because someone else has done something wrong? So we have to be able to process all of this. Why should I give in to my lust just because it's there? Why should I give in to my envy? Just because it's a conditioned response to a situation. I've cultivated envy for lifetimes, but now that I'm a devotee, why should I give in to it? Why can't I turn that around? Why can't I be nice to the person I'm envious of? Why can't I respect the person I'm envious of? I can do that. And that's what we need to do. We need to neutralize the negative that is coming at us, the contamination, the anarthas, the emotions which are dragging us down. We need to be able to neutralize it in a way that we can go on enthusiastically in our devotional service. Hare Krishna.